There is one Kirby game that I've really enjoyed over the years, and it's one that I don't really hear people talk about as much when compared to the others.
Honestly, I like this game a lot. It's in like my top 2 or 3 Kirby games of all time. Like, that's seriously how good I think this game is.
It's quite a unique Kirby game too, that really strays away from the other Kirby norms, giving it its own unique identity. Yes, if you haven't guessed already, this is the most epic Kirby game, well, according to Nintendo I guess, because it's called Kirby's Epic Yarn. While the game got pretty good reviews at the time, a lot of Kirby fans had their problems with it, which I don't really agree with, and I'll explain why in this video.
So let's fully dive into this game so I can show you why I feel this way about it. And by the end of this video, you'll have a pretty good idea as to where I'm coming from. Like seriously, you gotta see what this game has to offer.
But before we get there, we have to analyze the 7 key aspects of this game that really bring this entire experience together. Let's start with the first one, the visuals. This is something you'll immediately notice when you first play the game. Everything is made out of yarn. Why, you ask? Well, Kirby got sucked into a magic sock, which teleported him into a world of yarn.
And that's pretty weird, because when I bought this game, the guy selling me it gave me his sock too and said that it was magic. But to me, I mean, there's something magic about the odor that's coming from it, but that's about it.
So anyways, absolutely everything in this game is made to look like yarn and patches. I gotta admit, now this style is kinda getting overdone. You know, like the fabric style, clay looking, or just toy-like visuals aren't as creative or new as they were 10 years ago. But at the time that this game released, this was a totally unique concept that I loved and really added to the game's entire experience. The only other game that I can recall that kinda resembled this at the time was Little Big Planet. But still, that game was more so miniature toy style, while this game is pure yarn. But it is not just purely for aesthetics, these visuals, because they actually play around with the concept of yarn quite a lot when playing through the game. You can rip off patches from the background, swing on these little buttons, or even jump behind the fabric when you see these holes in the yarn. There's even really small, cool details like how the yarn gets pushed down when Kirby walks on top of it. Man, these are some really great details for a Wii game. They use this yarn concept in a bunch of creative ways too that I wouldn't have even thought of. Like how the water is just a single piece of yarn that ripples when you jump in it. Or how the snow in the winter levels is literally just little cotton balls. Plus there is really good visual level design here, like how every platform you stand on is marked by these little sewing lines in the fabric. And this makes it very obvious to the player what is part of the level design and what is just the background. Listen, all this stuff just adds to the fantastic world building that this game has. They went all in for this concept and I think it worked out beautifully. And honestly, the game's visuals really aged well. I don't even know how they made all this fabric look so realistic even on the Wii's hardware. This game still doesn't look outdated at all. Also, in these videos, I talk about a bunch of different video game topics, and I will usually try and add some sort of special effects into the mix, because I'm into that kind of stuff. So if that sort of thing interests you, then subscribe to the channel, because I have plenty of ideas for the future.
Oh, man. Looks like that was a magic sock after all. And it looks like I'm stuck in Patchland here for this video at least. So might as well get cozy and talk about Kirby's moveset in Epic Yarn.
This is the next aspect here, and it is very different from the normal Kirby games. There are no copy abilities, and you can't do your little puff-up thing either. So yeah, basically everything you've known about Kirby is gone. And this is because this game was originally not a Kirby game at all, but was just a platformer with a yarn art style that starred Prince Fluff instead. A character who did make it into the final release, but, you know, not as the main character. I guess Nintendo just looked at Prince Fluff and thought, you know, he kinda looks like Kirby. Well, congratulations team, you're now working on a Kirby game. While all these differences were a major turnoff for Kirby fans at its release, I think looking at what Kirby can do now instead of what he can't will make you appreciate the moveset more. Like, even though Kirby can't use copy abilities, I almost see each of his moves in this game as a different copy ability. So really, it's like he has a bunch of different copy abilities that he can use at any time. You can transform into a car, which is like wheel. You can be a weight, which is like stone. Then there's the parachute, which is like umbrella. And then your main attack is this whip, which is a lot like, well, whip. Yeah, I'm not saying these are exactly like copy abilities from before, but this is kind of a new spin on that idea. You gotta take this game as its own thing. But like I was saying, your primary attack is the whip, and with it you can do a lot of things. You can interact with certain objects, like the patches in the level, or, well, by unzipping some zippers. But this is really your main form of attacking. You can angle your whip to hit enemies above, diagonally, or just straight ahead of you to unravel these guys. Or you can turn any enemy into little balls of yarn that you can then use as a projectile, basically acting as how spitting out copy abilities work in the old games. But these projectiles are used to obtain many secrets in this game because this is the only way to break these solid yellow blocks from the side. However, if you're above them, you can use your weight also. I love using the car though, as it makes it actually pretty fast to move in these levels. So the game just feels more fast-paced when compared to the other Kirby games, with the movement at least. And as for not being able to puff up, I don't know, I actually like this change. In the other Kirby games, the platforming was never the focus since you had infinite jumps, making it pretty easy. But now they could actually create really fun platforming challenges in a Kirby game. Just look at this level with these rotating miniature planets. This is really cool and unique to this game. However, there is a new style of gameplay in this game that is kind of like the old copy abilities, and these are called the Metamortex sections. Yeah, that's their actual name, but in these parts of a level, Kirby transforms into some other form. This totally changes the gameplay in these parts, and gives Kirby a bunch of unique moves. And honestly, I really like these parts. It's a good change up from the regular levels when they occur. These work so well because they just have really good pacing. They all appear in quite a lot of levels, but the sections are not too long and they never overstay their welcome. Plus, there's actually a lot of unique transformations throughout the entire game, so you'll still be discovering new ones even in the later worlds. Some of my favorite ones are the buggy and surfer sections. These ones are all about speed, taking the correct path, and timing your jumps at the right time. It reminds me a lot of the Donkey Kong Country minecart levels. And then there's a really cool dolphin one that makes swimming an absolute breeze here. Such great controls and maneuverability now. These water levels are actually good. They aren't all hits though, like I wasn't really fond of the train or the mole transformations. You know, they weren't bad, but they just weren't all that great either. So if this game isn't a traditional Kirby game, then what is it? Well, it's kind of like a 2D platformer combined with a collectathon. And while just beating the levels normally isn't that difficult, getting all the collectibles in a level is definitely more challenging. Yes, these are the next aspect of this game. See, in every level there are 3 treasure chests to find, with 2 of them as furniture pieces and 1 with the level's music track. If you're going for all these, it definitely makes the level more challenging, as they can be pretty hard to find sometimes. And the hiding spots are pretty clever with how you get to some of them. But the main collectibles though are the beads. You have to collect enough of them in a level to fill up your bead meter at the top in order to get a bronze, silver, or gold rank. And gold being the highest, of course. A lot of these bead stashes can be hidden pretty well, so you have to really search the levels thoroughly to get the top rank. But a feature I really like is the fact that you lose beads when getting hurt by an enemy. This actually serves as a great punishment in the game, and it makes it more challenging. Plus, the further you are in a level, the more tense it now becomes, since a couple of bad screw-ups near the end could totally ruin your chances of a gold rank. This is another thing that people didn't really like when the game came out, that there is no health bar, so you can't actually lose health. And if you fall in a pit, you don't die, you just lose beads as well. But I never agreed with this point. Having lives in a 2D platformer didn't really have much of a purpose anymore, so this served as a better punishment for dying in my opinion. I'd argue that this game was even ahead of the times with this, and people just weren't ready to move on from the life system. I mean, isn't it funny how Mario Odyssey literally did the same thing with its life system and everyone praised it, but then Kirby did it way before and everyone said it was too easy now. Opinions, man, aren't they ever a weird thing? But now, let's look at what absolutely sells this game, and these are the levels themselves. They are so creative and work perfectly with this yarn focus. The level design, the level design in this game. They all feel very unique from each other and always introduce a fresh spin on the gameplay. Honestly, I don't even know how to describe this, so I'm just gonna go through some of the great ones with you and maybe you can see for yourself. There is a level that is all about dinosaurs. Makes you feel like you're in Jurassic Park. You'll be climbing on dinosaurs, swinging on pterodactyls, and there's this cool little part where you have to stay on a dinosaur's head to cross the water. There's a really creative toy level that makes you feel like you've just shrunken down and been placed into a kid's toy bin. You just see a bear and he's just crying, so you're like, what are you crying for? So you pull down the fabric and see that he's got a hole in his foot. So you just stitch it back up and look, he's happy now. He even gives you some beads in a shape of a lollipop. Isn't that nice? You get to the Waterlands, right? And you expect it to be all happy and cheerful like the rest of this game, but it's all like sad and everyone's asleep. It's dark, the music is dull, and you're like, what is going on here? Well, you actually just have to turn on the sun first, and everything begins like a normal Kirby level. All the animals are dancing again, you have this cool yarn wave mechanic, and the lens flares are just made out of yarn too. And then there's the snow world. Oh, what a great world. Every level here is honestly amazing. The first level is just like a giant snowball fight with little cotton snowballs. Then you explore this really cute cabin level in the shape of a giant red mitten. There's a really Christmassy level here where you're just scaling up this giant Christmas tree on a lift. Or the most fun level is this one, where instead of turning into a car when running, you turn into a sled. You just go sledding off these icy jumps while in this gorgeous winter level with these beautiful snowflakes here. And then at the end of each of these worlds, there is a boss battle. And you know what? I mean, they're pretty good. They serve as a good challenge for the end of all these worlds. They even have some pretty creative mechanics in them, like this magician guy who just spins a slot machine to decide his attack. But what I really like about these battles is that every boss has like a secret way of attacking them. These mostly involve figuring out that some of the boss's projectiles can be turned into balls of yarn and thrown back. And by doing this, you'll get extra beads that you need to unlock the rank above gold that's only available in boss battles. It's this patch rank. I don't even know what it's called, doesn't really have a name, but with this patch, you can unlock a few bonus levels in the current world. This is a cool unlockable and adds a lot more replayability to these bosses.
Jeez, aren't those just some great worlds to play through? But speaking of the worlds in this game, hub worlds, they're here too, and this is another part of this game that is done extremely well.
Like, it may not sound like a major part of this game, but it actually really enhances the main levels with how they're presented. There are 7 different lands in this game, and they all have a different theme for their hub worlds and just their general levels too. The hub worlds themselves all stick with the world's theme, but around each of the different doors for the levels, there are elements of those levels themselves that almost like bleed into the main hub world. So like the deep dark water level will be at the bottom of the water world, for example. It's also really neat to see the hub world change as you progress through the levels. When you beat a level, another door doesn't just open up, but it's more like you add something into the world, which then causes something else to happen. And that all results in the door opening. Like for example, you get a map at the end of one level, so you throw the map at an island, which reveals some secret treasure in it, which draws in some pirates, and then the door opens for that level. And then the level is also pirate theme too, with you jumping from boat to boat. This is some really great world building in this game, as everything feels so connected with one another. And it's like you're really making an impact in this world and actually creating the levels that you play on. Also, there's even like these overarching things that you build in these hub worlds. Like in World 3, it's got this whole dessert theme going on. So to open up the various levels, you just stack on layers of a cake that all have a level door on each layer. Or there's the snow world, which is like the opposite of this, but I really like how this was done too. Because it starts with this giant snowman in the middle of this place, and for every level you unlock, you just tear apart this guy piece by piece, until he's just a snowball with a face. I mean, look at his face, he's not happy. Luckily though, for the final door, you give him a little sweater, so everything worked out in the end. Ah, isn't that nice? And oh yeah, as you're playing through all these levels, you're gonna be hearing some fantastic music in them. Literally, this game is filled with so many tracks that all fit the levels perfectly. They all add some really great atmosphere to these stages, and they give them all a different mood. There's the happy and whimsical tune for the opening level, then there's the warm and cozy songs for the cabin level, or of course, the fast-paced beats for the race levels. Listen, these short audio clips do a disservice to the songs, so go listen to the full soundtrack at some point. But just know that all these different music tracks are used perfectly in their respective levels. But now, with that out of the way, this brings me to the final key aspect for this game, and that is the story. And you might be thinking, who cares? It's just a Kirby story. There's nothing to him. And that might be true, but the way that it is told is actually really awesome. You just got this yarn guy over here invading Dreamland in order to turn everything there into yarn? How evil! And yes, he's the one that teleports you through this sock to another world that is made entirely out of yarn, where you play most of the game. And then this yarn world is all broken up because of this guy Yin Yarn again. So you have to get the magic yarn at the end of every world to stitch Patchland back together. It's simple, yes, but I love how corny it is, and how aware of its corniness that it is too. Like, you know how you got sent to this world by a magic sock? Well, when you stitched up Patchland back together and are figuring out how to get back to Dreamland, Prince Fluff just pulls out another magic sock to teleport you there. Why? Because socks always come in pairs. I love it. But what I really like here more is how the story is told. It's like a storybook, which really fits the theme of this game and the entire series as well. It even comes complete with a really well voice acted narrator too.
He dove right in and started gobbling up the cake. I declare a cake-eating duel. And with that, Prince Fluff jumped into the cake as well.
Again, this just really adds to the charm of this game. I actually wanted to listen to the cutscenes here, which I really can't say about the other Kirby games. Okay, but only thing, I love the North American narrator, right? He's got a great voice, but after hearing the narrator from the European release, I wish we got that instead.
Welcome to Dreamland, a kingdom famous for peace and quiet. It's the perfect little land, if you like that sort of thing.
Welcome to Dreamland, a kingdom famous for peace and quiet. It's the perfect little land, if you like that sort of thing.
Come on, Nintendo, us North Americans like British narrators too.
Wait. That's it. I think this story showed me how I can get back to my world. Socks always come in pairs. Here we go. I got it. This is it. I'm coming home. Ah, perfect. Everything looks just fine here.